Hebrew History and Prophetic Books. 9. From the decree of Cyrus, permitting the return from the captivity to the close of Ezra's official mission, AM 3468 to 3547, 536 to 457 BCE, the prophet Jeremiah had predicted about the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim. I should have looked up the Aramea for that to figure out how it's pronounced, but 610 BCE, that the people of Judah should be carried captive to Babylon, and that their captivity should last 70 years. Though the destruction of Jerusalem did not occur to some 20 years after this, yet the fact that in the 3 or 4 years from the utterance of this prediction, Nebuchadnezzar conquered the Jews and began to send many of the people to Babylon, makes it evident that the period is to be reckoned from this point, or about 606 BCE. We have in this lesson the notice of the completion of the 70 years, the proclamation of the Persian king, now sovereign of Babylon, and all its dependencies, and the account of the return of the first installment of the children of the captivity, comprising about 50,000 persons. We have the history of the restoration of their worship, and the building of the temple. That doesn't really look like an and, but I'm going to say and. The building of the temple with the opposition of and malicious interruptions to which they were subject. The record is broken and not continuous. After the completion of the temple, there is an interval of nearly 60 years of which we have no information. Then there is an account of Ezra's journey with 2,000 men and the regulations and reformation introduced by him as governor or viceroy of the king of Persia. It is evident that there was no intention of restoring the independence of the nation. It was, and for many years continued to be, a providence of the Persian Empire. The history closes abruptly and is not resumed again till many years afterward in the book of Nehemiah. To this period unquestionably belong the incidents recorded in the book of Esther. See Numbers 11. It seems to be given to exhibit and illustrate the fact that while a small portion only of the Jews returned to Palestine, there are multitudes scattered abroad throughout the countries of the Gentiles and in various provinces of the Persian Empire, preserving their distinct nationality and keeping up the religious observances. We get from this a pretty fair idea of the relation of the Jews to the other nation, and learn from it that, though in exile, they usually enjoyed a good degree of freedom. It is believed by a large number of the best authorities that the king Ahasuerus, who is so conspicuous in this narrative, was the Xerxes, whose invasion of Greece resulted so disastrously. It was in this invasion that occurred the battle of Thermopylae and that of Salamis, and the defeat of the Persians at Plataea and Mycale. The scriptural narrative has reference to a time when subsequent to the return of Xerxes. Within this period, embracing nearly a century, lived many notable historical characters. Confucius, Zoroaster, well, the Achaemenian revival, really, but that's another list, right? And one can find that list on my channel. Pythagoras, Sophocles, Miltiades, and Cimon, or Cimon, and later Pericles. Great events too took place. The overthrow of Tarquin the Proud in Rome, and the establishment of the Roman Republic. And the Battle of Marathon. Among the Jews, Zechariah and Haggai were the prophets. What important event took place soon after the conquest of Babylon by the Medes and the Persians, which greatly affected the fortune of the Jewish people? Ezra 1:1. Who issued the proclamation, and what was its purport? 1:1-4. Its effect 5:6. Did the king do anything else to further this object? 7-11. What does the catalog of names in Ezra 2 represent? How many were there in all? 64-67. What further aid was furnished toward the enterprise? Verses 68 and 69. What took place a few months after the return? 3:1-7. What in the second year? 8-11. How were some of the people affected? 12-13. What trouble arose, and from what source? What followed on this account? What was the effect of the Persian government and on the plans of the Jews? How long was the work delayed? 4:1-24. What prophets exercised their office in these times? 5:1. What influence did they exert? Zechariah 1:1-6, 4:1-10, etc. Haggai 1:1-11, 2:1-9. The effect, Ezra 5:2. Conduct of the enemies 3-6. What did they do further? Verses 6 and 7. Purport of the letter 8-17. Action of the Persian government. What was the result? 6:1-6. Commandment of the king to the intermeddlers. 7-12. What was the consequence? Give some account of the festivities at the completion of the temple. 13-22. How long a period elapses here without any record? Give an account of the appointment of Ezra and the commission given him by the king. 7:1-20. What further orders were given by the king? 21-26. What was the number of men? Introduction. What did they gather, and what was done there? 8:15-23. Mention some of the treasures collected. 24-27. What was done on their arrival at Jerusalem? 31-36. What condition of affairs did Ezra find at Jerusalem? 9:1-2. How did it affect them? 3-11. What did he do? 12-13. Effect upon the people. 10:1-4. What was done? 5-19. And well, if they're presenting it entirely as history, sacred history has more important than just that. So, but I mean, history has its lessons. So, but spiritual context is, it's not supposed to separate from the material world. And sometimes, for some people, it's hard to talk about these things at the same time.